Welcome to Everything Life Coaching. I'm John Kim.
And I'm Noelle Cordeaux. We are the founders of Lumia.
And we're super passionate about all things coaching, and we want to share what we've learned from over a decade of coaching and training thousands of life coaches.
Let's dive into the science and magic of coaching.
On today's episode, Noelle and I are going to talk about the top 4 trends for coaches from the Global Wellness Summit of 2023. Noelle.
Yes, and I think both John and I have colds, so this is going to be the under the weather podcast talking about the trends from the Global Wellness Summit. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's raining here in Los Angeles, and it's the first time in my life that I'm actually sick of the rain. Usually, being in LA, you're thirsty for the rain, but this year, it's rained more this year in LA than I think I've been here for 43 years, and it's never rained this much. So it feels like Oregon in Los Angeles.
Wow. I think we swapped weather because it's been,
sunny.
I remember, it's been sunny and warm and kind of 60, but I've been on the road almost the whole month of March. And so, we're really just getting back to it with the spring weather. So I'm glad to be here. However stuffy we both are. And
Yeah.
I think what's important to set up our time together today is to explain what the Global Wellness Summit is and why these trends reports are so important.
Mm-hmm.
The Global Wellness Summit is one of the only organizations in the world that actually tracks data and trends around the $3.4 trillion wellness market. And that's where coaching is housed. So for coaches, there's not a lot of industry research in our space, specifically on coaching, because it's such a new field. And so when we're trying to figure out, where are the trends? Where do we go? How do we build our businesses? What are we really seeing? The Global Wellness Summit is one of the strongest predictors of what's going to happen. They're typically about 4 years ahead of what actually comes to pass. So right now, 4 years ago, the Global Wellness Summit predicted that workforce wellness and coaching was going to be one of the top trends. And boom, here we are today. So this is the trends report that just came out in 2023. And so as we're kind of working through this, we want to understand it from the lens of where are we at now and where can we expect to grow and build in the future.
Yeah. So if you're listening, you get to look into the crystal ball today.
We
See how
do.
things are panning out. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So trend number 1, and this trend I actually think has been happening for a while, and it's connection and gathering versus loneliness and isolation. That's happening.
Yes, this is huge. So, let's set this up a little bit too. So we're entering our 4th year of the pandemic. And just for some context, kids that started high school when they first started the pandemic are about to graduate.
Wow.
And right. And same thing for college. And so we've lost, so much in this span of time. And for most of the world, it's been a long, difficult, and very confusing era. And so what we're seeing is that starting in 2022, people really rushed to return to life. They really rushed to see people, to travel. They want real world experiences. And so as this was taking place, there was a lot of conjecture happening around, well, what is going to happen? But 2022 gave us the data that we need and the actual reports based on both observation and evidence. So global surveys are now showing that where we thought wellness spending was going to slow down because it was once a luxury item, it's actually speeding up. And it's a top priority for people worldwide, that despite a tough economy, they're really upping their wellness spend. And there's a lot of reasons for that because the consumers themselves have changed. So people are now more reflective. They want science-backed approaches. They're less selfish. They're more concerned about other people and the planet, and they want solutions that are meaningful and they work. So as we're kind of taking into consideration, who is this consumer, it really comes down to, well, what have they lost? And this is where this trend on connection really comes into play because people have lost so much. Loneliness is one of the biggest issues. This is
Hmm.
something, John, I think you and I have both really struggled with over our lives, is loneliness. What what has loneliness meant to you, and how have you really contended with it in the course of your life?
I think there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. That line blurs for me often because I work a lot by myself, punching keys, writing books, all of that stuff. And so I just have to be aware that if I'm spending too much time by myself, I could start to feel lonely. Um, there are parts of me that I need to be by myself to hit creativity and flow states, and to me that's like solitude. Um, but I tend to forget that I am human and I need to engage with other people. And so if I don't, I literally have to set an alarm, or I can for hours drown in this, and then I start to feel really kind of lonely, isolated. And so yeah, for me it's very blurry. I just have to make sure that I'm not by myself for too long, meaning stretches of weeks, months, just working solo.
Yeah, totally. And I'm an extrovert, and during the
Mhm.
pandemic there was a point at which I questioned myself. Am I really extroverted? Am I really changing? And I think what I discovered is that I was just emotionally drowning. And globally, loneliness is skyrocketing, and it's been for some time. And there are a lot of things that we know about loneliness. We know that it kills people when you spend too much time alone, because we're like human plants and we need other people. And that it's also the number one predictor of health and happiness in relationships. This is one of the reasons why Lumia was built around community, to make sure that our coaches and community have the support that they need as they work to serve others. I remember when we first began, for your 40th birthday party, you invited people from your community, from your TAT community, to come join you. And I thought that was one of the bravest, most generous, and craziest things I'd ever heard. How did it come out?
I don't. This is 10 years ago. I don't remember. Did I ask them to join me online? Was it an online party?
No, it was like at a cabin in the woods somewhere.
Oh, I don't. Man, my memory is shot. But yeah, I mean, speaking of cabins, one of the things that I'm realizing is, so I've been doing these kind of micro retreats, is the power of community, the power of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, especially in different environments. So obviously online, but also in person, in the woods, taking yourself out of the city, and it's been like medicine for me. It's really there are things that I wasn't into. I'm not really into retreats, throwing retreats, but something about 20 people in the woods, has been a great reminder of just the power of human connection. So
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome. So, from this particular trend, what do coaches need to know? I think first and foremost is that the pandemic was a breaking point, and we're now seeing a surge of business development based on social connection as the center of the concept. So, what you just shared, John, that you're now throwing retreats and that there's something absolutely magical about 20 people in the woods, this is where coaches are finding traction right now. And with remote work, especially, people need everyday places to be and belong. I've had a long running joke that my next job is going to be working at a coffee house, and I think it might be because people need places to gather and belong. And to me, that feels so lovely and intimate to have a small gathering space. So, as we're tackling this trend of loneliness as wellness practitioners, as coaches, we all need to be imagining into this space because it hasn't been created yet. There hasn't been a focus on building in person community for the purpose of connection and touchstones, just for the purpose of having that like-minded group of people together. Startups are starting to bring to connection to those who need it most. New social apps and platforms are doing things. John, I saw this trend and thought of you. One of the trends right now is dinner parties for strangers, and
Yeah.
you and Buddy did that
Yes, back in the day, and
back in
Los
the day.
Feliz. Yep,
Yeah.
bringing 9 people together, strangers, and it's not just about loneliness. It makes you feel, because for that hour and a half or whatever, you're not thinking about your problems. You're hearing other people's stories, so it makes you not dwell on your problems. It pulls you out of uh, your shit.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things about human connection that we forget, is that when we're by ourselves, the only, opportunity that we have is to be inside of our own heads or to be stimulating ourselves with our senses. But when you're with other people, it does pull you out and you're forced to co-create an experience. And it's not only startups and coaches and retreats that are really getting into the benefits of human connection. Governments with policy,
Hmm.
as we're going to talk about
Hmm.
a little bit later on, are starting to fight loneliness because they're seeing these entry points for connection as social medicine. So, what this means for you as a coach is that now is the time to consider connecting your clients.
Yeah.
Just like John has modeled for us, with the retreats, with meetups, Zoom, any other creative ideas to bring like minded people together to foster connection. Um, John, what would you say to folks who have never done this before? What's a great way to think about how to begin engaging groups in this way?
Wow. I always go to documentation, so I always go to start talking about it. So, it's because people put so much weight on the end product, like when there used to be DVDs, all the bonus scenes behind the scenes, right? A lot of times people bought DVDs not just for the movie or their favorite movie, but all the stuff they didn't see in the movie, right? And I think if you want to create a community, if you want to do small retreats or even like dinner parties, talk about your fear of doing it, talk about all the behind the scenes. And what it does is it gets people really interested, and so when you do offer the invitation, people are already hooked by the story behind it.
Oh, wow.
So I think a lot of people make the mistake, a lot of coaches make the mistake of just saying, here's the banner, here's what I'm doing. But you get a lot of buy-in if you start talking about why you're doing it, what scares you about it, what's your expectations, all of that stuff. And so that when you say come over, people are like, oh, I know this story, I want to contribute to this.
Yeah, and I think there's such a huge fear in humanizing oneself as a professional. And that's one of the areas where coaching is really breaking down barriers, because vulnerability is often the entry point to signal to somebody that you understand them, that they can understand you, to really forge that human connection. And, in thinking about this, and one of the things that I love about our community is that it's co-equal. Um, Coaching is a co-equal relationship where coach and client are equal. The coach isn't, in charge of the relationship. It's a co-facilitated relationship. And within our community, I've formed friendships, you've formed friendships. It's very non-hierarchical. And so I think it's a really great example of how you can kind of take your mask off and be a human and be held, by other
Yeah.
people that you benefit as well as a coach. All right. This
Trend two.
bleeds into trend number 2, which is wellness tourism. You have a lot more experience here than I do, John. What's wellness tourism to you? What's been your experience with it?
Well, I was going to say, what is your definition of wellness tourism for people who are foreign to that concept?
Yeah. So, my understanding of wellness tourism is that you're traveling. Obviously, the consumer
Hmm.
is traveling. And while that consumer is traveling, that human wants to experience some element of wellness, whether it's a massage or a Reiki session or a coaching session or a
Hmm.
retreat that's focused on self discovery or self growth, or learning something new, bettering yourself in some way while you are traveling.
Yeah, I think I don't travel much, but I have clients that do, and so a lot of clients want me in their pocket. So that's is can be part of wellness tourism maybe. But I think we're kind of all thirsty for new experiences, and so whether it's retreats or sound baths or the big thing right now is ice plunges. Everyone's kind of doing that, myself included. um, just new experiences in general. So when it comes to wellness tourism, I think people are very open and thirsty for um, new experiences that kind of fall under the umbrella of self betterment, bettering yourself, being a better person, all of that. So even things like speed dating, even things like,
Yeah.
that are kind of like half social and half wellness,
Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
like I agree, and I think the retreats that you've been hosting are a fantastic example of wellness tourism. And
Hmm.
thinking about what you said with your clients wanting to have you in their pocket, um, BetterHelp just formed a partnership with W Hotels that when you check into the hotel, you can get a therapy
Hmm.
session. And
Wow.
yeah, just thinking about this for coaches, what's happening right now with the trend, and this message is really focused. So wellness tends to be really whitewashed. There aren't a lot of BIPOC,
Hmm.
wellness creators out there right now, and the direction that we're headed in is that people actually want to have authentic experiences, indigenous experiences. And so
Hmm.
we're seeing an opening and an entry point like never before. And thank God we are, for folks who are indigenous, who like live in LA like you do, John, to say, come have an authentic experience, because travelers want to have authentic cultural experiences alongside of their
Right.
wellness experiences. And so I'd love to shoot this up as kind of like a rallying cry, that if you feel like you're in the wellness space and you look around and say, well, nobody looks like me, go anyway, go for it anyway, put your foot on the gas anyway, because this is the time for diverse practitioners to really rise in the wellness space.
Yeah. I mean, I think, especially today, and I'm seeing this in media, um, minorities are they finally been given the stage, and so
Yes.
I think it's a plus if you're a minority, you have the opportunity to create that kind of space for any kind of different culture, wherever you're at in your life. So that's I think that doors has cracked open. I mean, that's how I see it, and so there's a whole ripple with wellness, of course, and entertainment, where it's a good time for this.
It has cracked open, and
Yeah,
it's time to kick it open. And I
yeah.
think our Lumia community is so diverse, and it's something I'm super proud of. So what does this mean for you as a coach? It's everything from understanding local traditions wherever you happen to live to spirituality. You can reach out to your own local hotel and resort, reach out to local tour guides or even travel agents, and negotiate to get on the menu of attractions and of care providers.
Hmm.
The sky is the limit, and folks know that coaching is one of the missing links between wellness and care, and folks are really hungry to have those experiences. So kind of along the same lines of retreats and gathering, this is a time when this has never existed before, so there is no template for it, and everyone needs to get really creative as they're driving into the
Yeah,
workforce.
yeah. And I see that as an opportunity.
Me too. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
All
The
right.
third trend is the explosion of wellness in the workplace, right? Workplace wellness finally starting to mean something, and of
Yeah.
course, you see a lot of this, right, on the corporate end meetings.
I do. And we've been talking about this for a really long time. We've been talking about this well before it was popular,
Hmm.
because we knew that the psychological hit of the pandemic really broke trust with organizations, and that a ripple would be created throughout the workforce for years. And we're seeing this happen now in really huge waves. Worldwide, 70% of workers have experienced burnout in the past year. And a recent global study, and I love this statistic, found that 38% of workers hate their jobs so much that they wouldn't
Hmm.
wish their jobs on their worst enemy.
A lot of people become coaches because, they don't like their jobs. There isn't a sense of purpose. There's no passion, and so helping people seems like it's become popular because they want to feel more purpose in their life. You know.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are becoming coaches to go back into the workforce to help solve a lot of these problems within
Yeah.
organizations that let them down previously. And so what we're seeing this trend is rallying against has been what happened in the past, which is this idea of superficial wellness at work, where, it would be like, well, let's just order pizza for everyone as like the blanket solution for mass misery. Like pizza doesn't heal emotional trauma from managers, right? So what this means for coaches is that now is the time for coaching and wellness to move inside corporations. And this is a numbers game. So when the job applications are starting to show up for internal coaches, and there's a huge surge of them, everybody wants ICF credentialed coaches with experience. That's just across the board in industry. But there are only 50,000 credential holders of ICF's credentials globally. So the demand for coaches to support the workforce is really unequal right now. And this includes everything from manager preparedness to coach hosted offsites and gatherings. So you don't have to be a managerial coach or an executive coach to work inside of workforce wellness. You can be a wellness coach helping folks with meditation and mindfulness and posture and mobility and emotions and financial health that comes inside to help kind of get rid of that superficial junk that's been going around for a really long time.
Yeah. And I've been feeling this. Farmers Insurance contacted me, and a company like that, where you're thinking insurance, they're starting to care about wellness and wanted me to speak and possibly run something over a weekend. And so that's just proof that, once insurance companies are open to wellness, and then it definitely has penetrated, right? So this is happening. It's a trend.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think it would be like if this trend is successful?
Well, I think even if you don't like your job, just the fact that your company cares about your well-being is going to make you a happier employee. So I think if this is successful, people are going to be happier, which of course is going to lead to better performance, but just overall quality of people in the workspace, threading wellness into their life. Like the line between work life and wellness, that being blurred is going to make work much better, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. The world is really changing right now. And I think that this change is just going to continue to be accelerated. Workforce wellness and workplace reform is set to change everything. And coaching, being a discipline that's really centered around empathy, listening, and forging connection with others, is 100% going to be at the forefront of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that we've kind of like moved through this huge funnel, if you will. We started out with retreats and gathering, and then into the bigger space of hospitality and then work. And now our final trend is what's happening with governments and policy. So we're kind of seeing how this is really expanding out on a global level, which is a very exciting time to be alive, I think.
What is happening in government and policy, or is there just a lot happening as far as
there's a lot happening? So one of the things that's been taking place is, let's talk about, where we're at here. Money drives everything, right?
Yeah.
And beyond our capitalistic system, government interventions to provide wellness now have teeth and staying power. So why? Why is this happening? Governments know the crippling economic and societal costs when people don't feel physically and mentally well. In the United States, productivity dropped. They know that unless unwellness shrinks down, the labor force is going to really be hurting. And that's the worst possible combo for long-term economic growth. So essentially, governments have known for a really long time that preventative wellness saves public money because it costs less than a bunch of sick and unwell and unhappy and depressed people. And the pandemic really forced this all into the spotlight because of the way that folks were really breaking down and suffering. And honestly, I think that we're just starting to see the outcomes of all of the trauma that we went through during the pandemic now. Like
Mm.
now, because everybody rushed back to the world in 2022, like, oh, just kidding, nothing to see here. And I think
Right.
now is the time when we're really starting to see in families and relationships and schools and communities that the mental cracks and strain. And so policy, funding,
Mm-hmm.
programs are beginning to flood into the wellness space. And this is really good news for coaches. What's your
Yeah.
take on all of it?
More jobs, more opportunities. What's my take on this stuff? I don't know a lot about like you do, because you read so much and you take in all the latest data and stuff, like this global summit. I don't really know a lot about what's happening in government and policy. I do feel, and this has been happening for a long time, the swell of the commercialization of wellness, and maybe I'm
Yeah.
more because I play in that field. So the different type of ads and social media, how people are talking, what they're talking about. So I feel all of that. But as far as the government, I don't. It's too far away. I don't know what's happening on that side.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
In 2022, the US Surgeon General released a recommendation that the number one thing we could do for people in the United States was worker equity. And that
Mm.
to me was just astounding to see in print from a government agency. It talked about
Wow.
things like connection and meaning and purpose,
Yeah. Yeah.
within the landscape of worker equity. So that how this actually plays out and what people are going to begin to experience are different policies aimed at physical, mental, environmental, and even financial well-being. So this is
Hmm.
everything from like healthy eating campaigns to regenerative agriculture to biodiversity protection, all the way down to like, there are some countries that have started passing laws that your boss can't contact you during certain hours,
Mm. Wow, that's
right?
amazing. I love
Isn't
that.
that? So
Boundaries.
and those are the kinds of like government policies that are
Yeah.
starting to move into place to support wellness. So for coaches, this means that grants are available. If you need money to start your business, if you're working in
Mm.
communities, if you're bringing this kind of wellness to people where you live, you can probably get a grant to run your business because this space is being created for folks to do work in. Two really great examples. Japan launched a project spanning a host of wellness objectives with a focus on boosting the health span of its aging population. So let's just take that for a second. Boosting the health span of its aging population. This is the work of coaches. This is mental stimulation. This is mobility and aging. This is hobbies. This is community. This is connection. And then in New York City, the mayor's office just invested $44 million to train 200,000 doctors and nurses on how to use preventative lifestyle medicine. That's coaching. That is
Wow.
straight up coaching. And
Yeah.
so all of these initiatives are going to need to be staffed.
Lifestyle medicine. That's interesting. I've never heard that term.
Lifestyle medicine is
Yeah.
a fancy word for coaching.
Yeah.
It's behavioral adaptation. We need coach. I mean, we've known for a long time that coaching is the missing link between behavioral adaptation and actual lifestyle health. And so I think that that's what we're starting to see here. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. So whether you've been thinking about coaching or you are in the Lumia program, or you're just kind of curious about wellness in general, I hope this podcast episode was helpful in kind of painting a picture for you how everything is growing, where everything's headed. And so lots of opportunities.
Yes. And now we both need tea and honey.
Yes. We need our own little wellness in our life today. Thank you for listening. Be well.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Everything Life Coaching. If you're feeling the draw to become a coach, head to lumiacoaching.com/everything. Explore a new career that brings fulfillment, gives you a true sense of purpose, and a bold community to do it with.
Lumia is ready to equip you with the tools, training, and community you will need to reach your goals. If you're ready to build a unique coaching business on your own terms while making an impact on the world at large, Lumia is the next bold step in your coaching journey. That's lumiacoaching.com/everything.
And hey, if you're waiting for a sign, this is it.